May 10th, 2008. It's a warm Saturday afternoon in northeastern Oklahoma, and something threatening is building to the west.
Ow! Look at that hail! Wow! Woohoo! Oh, what's that over there? That cloud.
In the small town of Picher, Oklahoma, the streets are already quiet. They've been quiet for years. Businesses are closed and houses sit empty. The government had told people to leave, and most of them did. What remained was a skeleton of a town, surrounded by mountains of toxic waste towering 200 feet into the sky. This was already one of the most contaminated places in the United States, a place the EPA had essentially given up on. But the atmosphere above northeastern Oklahoma had other plans for Picher. Forecasters had been watching a dangerous supercell thunderstorm organize across the region throughout the afternoon. The conditions were about as bad as they get. High instability, powerful wind shear, and a storm that was moving fast and getting stronger by the minute. So what made this particular tornado so different from any other? Well, what was sitting directly in its path was unlike anything a tornado had torn through before. Not a city, not a suburb, a federal toxic waste site. Decades of poisonous mining debris piled up across every corner of the town, and in just minutes, an EF4 tornado was about to tear through all of it. What happened next had never happened before in recorded history.
There's a tornado right there. Right there. You look at that. And then you get that.
But the tornado wasn't the beginning of Picher's disaster. In fact, the town had been dying for decades. In 1913, lead and zinc were discovered on land belonging to hairy crawfish, a member of the Quapaw tribe in far northeastern Oklahoma. Within a decade, a boomtown had erupted around the find. At its peak in the 1920s, Picher's population swelled to nearly 20,000 people. More than 14,000 men worked the mines underground. The town had a bustling main street, schools, churches, and a sense of permanence that small American towns are built on. During World War I, the Picher mining field supplied more than 50% of the zinc and 45% of the lead used by the entire United States military. During World War II, 50% of all American bullets and bombshells were made from metals pulled out of the ground beneath this one small town in northeastern Oklahoma. Picher didn't just exist. For a time, it helped America win its wars. But the industry that built Picher was also slowly destroying it. For decades, the mining companies extracted what they needed and dumped everything else on the surface. Millions of tons of crushed rock and toxic mine waste, known as chat. The chat piles grew and grew until they towered up to 200 feet above the flat Oklahoma landscape, like a mountain range made of poison. The piles contained high concentrations of lead, zinc, cadmium, and arsenic. But for decades, nobody understood what was sitting on their doorstep. Kids rode their bikes up and down the piles. Families had picnics on them. Some parents scooped the gray dust into their children's sandboxes. Nobody knew it was killing them. Mining ceased in 1967. When the pumps that had kept the underground mine shafts dry were shut off, 14,000 abandoned tunnels began filling with contaminated water. By the late 1970s, that water began seeping to the surface, draining into the local Tar Creek. The creek turned orange, then red. Fish died, and the ground beneath the town, riddled with 14,000 empty mine shafts, became dangerously unstable. Sinkholes began opening without warning. In 1983, the EPA designated the area as the Tar Creek Superfund site, one of the first and most contaminated in the nation. A 1994 study revealed what the chat piles had been doing to the children of Picher for generations. 34% of children tested had blood lead levels above the federal danger threshold. Lead poisoning at these levels causes irreversible neurological damage, learning disabilities, developmental delays, and a lifetime of consequences the children of Picher never asked for. By 2006, an Army Corps of Engineers study confirmed what many already feared. 86% of Picher's buildings, including the town's school, were structurally compromised and subject to collapse at any time. The government made a decision. The town had to go.
Ottawa County, plagued by heavy metal contamination and sinkholes that threaten area residents.
The Tar Creek area was named to the EPA's Superfund list almost 20 years ago. Tonight, Tammy Marler joins us to explain some of the complex political issues getting in the way of solutions. Tammy?
Paul and Terry, people are very frustrated in that area, and it's understandable.
A mandatory buyout program was launched. Slowly, the town emptied. Streets fell silent. Businesses closed. By 2008, Picher was barely a shadow of what it had once been. What remained was a skeleton of a town surrounded by mountains of toxic waste, standing in the middle of a federal disaster zone.
Unbeknownst to the few hundred people who had refused or delayed their buyouts, the atmosphere above northeastern Oklahoma was about to add something new to Picher's list of catastrophes. May 10th, 2008, Saturday. In the early afternoon, conditions across northeastern Oklahoma and southwestern Missouri begin to align in a deeply troubling way. Forecasters at the Storm Prediction Center have been watching a potent weather system pushing eastward across the Great Plains. The atmosphere over the region carries exceptional instability, the raw energy that feeds thunderstorms, combined with powerful wind shear, or rapidly changing wind directions at different levels of the atmosphere, which allows storms to rotate. These are the core ingredients of violent tornadoes. By early afternoon, supercell thunderstorms begin firing across northeastern Oklahoma. One in particular begins to organize with alarming speed, developing a large, rotating base as it tracks eastward across Craig County. It is moving fast, too fast, and it is heading directly for Ottawa County, home of Picher. A weather spotter in the town of Welch, just west of Picher, spots the developing circulation at 5:20 p.m. Central Daylight Time and calls it in. Tornado sirens begin to wail across Picher. The warning gives residents exactly 19 minutes. 19 minutes may sound like a lot of time. It isn't. At 5:39 p.m. Central Daylight Time, the tornado touches down south of the Kansas-Oklahoma border and immediately begins to intensify. It tracks rapidly eastward, widening and strengthening with every mile. By the time it reaches the outskirts of Picher, it has become a large, violent EF4 wedge tornado, a monster with winds estimated between 166 and 200 miles per hour. It arrives exactly when the sirens said it would. The tornado cuts a catastrophic path through 20 city blocks of Picher. In a town already reduced to empty streets and condemned homes, the destruction is still incomprehensible. Over 200 homes and structures are destroyed or severely damaged, many swept completely off their foundations. Cars are thrown across roads. Buildings that had stood for nearly a century are reduced to splintered wood and twisted metal in seconds. What little was left of Picher is now gone. But this tornado carries something no other tornado in recorded history has carried through an American town. As the EF4 winds tear through the chat piles surrounding the city, they pulverize the toxic mining waste and launch it into the air. Millions of particles of lead, cadmium, and arsenic, the very poison that had been slowly killing Picher for decades, are lofted thousands of feet into the atmosphere and scattered across a massive debris field downwind of the storm. The tornado had turned Picher's poison into a weapon. 6 people lost their lives in Picher. They are among the few hundred who had remained in a town the government had already given up on. Samuel Berry, 20 years old, and his wife Tracy Berry, 19, lost their lives together. They were young, newly married, and had chosen to stay in the only hometown they had ever known. Chizuri Cox, 80 years old, does not survive. She had lived in Picher for most of her life, through the boom years, through the slow poisoning, through the evacuation orders. She had outlasted all of it,
The tornado took what time could not. Misty Kelly, 30, and Linda Mathis, 48, are also among the dead, as is Darrell Patterson II, 28, who had been visiting friends in Picher from Wagoner, Oklahoma. He had no idea what the town was about to face. At least 150 people are injured in Picher alone.
The tornado does not stop at the city limits. It continues eastward, clipping the north side of Quapaw before merging with a second tornado that had formed nearby. The two circulations fusing into a single, re-intensified monster nearly a mile wide. It crosses into Missouri, where it strikes the communities of Racine and the area around Neosho with catastrophic force. Near the intersection of Highway 43 and Iris Road in Newton County, vehicles are thrown as far as half a mile from the road. 15 more people die in Missouri, including Tyler Casey, 21 years old, a volunteer firefighter who had been out storm spotting, trying to protect his community. Before this day, no tornado had killed a storm spotter from Missouri. Tyler would be the first. In total, 21 people lose their lives. It is the deadliest single tornado in Oklahoma since the 1999 Bridge Creek Moore tornado. It is, at that moment, the deadliest tornado in Missouri history.
By nightfall on May 10, 2008, the monster is gone. But for Picher, there is nothing left to save.
Maggie, we are on the west side of Picher, and let me tell you, we continue to see damage that is just heartbreaking. Take a look at this car. You can tell it was tossed around a bit, the windows blown out, the seats are out of the car. You can see it was 2 blocks away from here and it landed in that position. Now over here is the base of a large tree. It was uprooted and it was tipped over, and another car just crushed, is on top of it. Also, you can see that the tree limbs have been debarked. That's because of the force, the intensity of the tornado. And let me just tell you, all of this damage, a good indication of what type of tornado tore through here.
In the days following the tornado, Oklahoma Governor Brad Henry deploys National Guard troops and emergency personnel to assist survivors. U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Michael Chertoff tours the damage. Standing in the ruins of what had once been a neighborhood, he states that the scene looks like a small nuclear bomb went off. Federal and state officials make their position clear. There will be no funding to rebuild Picher. The buyout program will continue as planned. The tornado had simply accelerated what was already inevitable. One by one, the last holdouts accepted their checks and drove away. On September 1st, 2009, the town of Picher officially canceled its incorporated status. Demolition crews moved in, tearing down what the tornado had not. The streets emptied completely. A town of 20,000 at its peak. A town that helped win 2 world wars. Gone. Gary Linderman, the pharmacist who had refused to leave, who had stayed open to serve whoever still needed him, kept his promise. He remained in Picher until the very end, the last business owner in a ghost town. June 6th, 2015, at the age of 60. He was the last piece of Picher still standing. Today, the chat piles remain. Cleanup of over 30 million tons of toxic mining waste continues at the Tar Creek Superfund site, a process experts estimate could take another 50 years to complete. The ground still shifts, the water still runs orange, the wind still carries lead dust across the landscape. In 2021, Tar Creek was listed by American Rivers as one of the 10 most endangered rivers in the United States. What the tornado did to Picher in 19 minutes, the mines had been doing for 50 years. The storm didn't destroy Picher, it just made sure that everyone could see what was already there. Every storm eventually ends, but the way we hold each other, that remains. Take care of one another. If you made it this far, you clearly care about stories like this. Subscribe and leave a like. It helps this story reach more people and keeps these documentaries coming. Stay alert, and I'll see you in the next one.